Thanks again for joining me on another Electric Dreams podcast. I have Mickey from EVX once again joining me, and I actually have Adam from Wrongway channel.
Hello.
Today we're gonna do our little educational piece, and we're actually gonna talk about pedal stance. And after that, we're gonna free flow the conversation. We'll probably talk a little about the S18. We'll probably talk about a little bit the V11, and whatever goes, goes. Okay, so pedal stance. Where do you guys stand on pedal stance? Now, let me just say ahead time. There is no 100% proper way, right? I mean, it's all on personal preference, and we're just sharing our personal experiences, given that we're relatively experienced riders. I personally stand with 1 foot forward and 1 foot back. It's usually my left foot and my left foot forward and my right foot back. It allows for better acceleration and better deceleration. Mickey, do you mind telling us how you stand on your wheels?
I do the same thing, but I think that from what I've seen in pictures and video, I probably have the most aggressive, like offset stance of anybody. My back foot is almost halfway off the back. My left is back, my right is forward, and my body is turned too. I feel like as much as I never got into e-boarding, I started skating. It's like I'm always trying to ride sideways, like I'm skating a little bit. But it for sure gives me, and especially if you have a wheel like you're riding the Nicola, right, Adam? Is that what's one of your wheels? That wheel is prone to speed wobbles or brake wobbles, I should say. So having that offset stance just gives you a leg up before you need to really think hard about what you're doing in braking. But yeah, I'm like this, and it gives me a little like also extra boost when I'm like braking too. I can like almost let my heel fall off the back, and I push.
Yeah, that's what I do as well.
Into the pedal. But I'm curious, Jack. When I'm accelerating though, I'm a weirdo to where like since I'm right dominant, my right foot stays planted, and I use my left foot, the back foot, if you will, to lift up on my toe when I push pressure on that foot. Do you put pressure on your forward foot when you're accelerating, or your rear foot?
So if I'm accelerating hard, the first step is the foot that is forward gets lifted off the heel. So the heel does not touch the pedal, and it's on the edge.
The reverse.
And then the other foot that's further back stays just normal. And if there are times where it calls for like really hard acceleration, then both feet, the heels may both come off both pedals. But usually, you've never need that much torque. But maybe if I'm climbing or doing black diamond trails, I might do that. But yeah. Adam, where do you stand on your pedal stance?
Well, it also for me always shifts like when turning or going forwards, backwards if I'm hill climbing and so on. But mostly I also lean a bit towards the side that you do also, Mickey. So I have one foot a bit more forward than the other. In my case, it's the left foot because I always was like, goofy on a skateboard. So I have, but it's not like ridiculously offset. It's just really a bit. And most of the time, I want to have my toes over, like, not on the surface of the pedals, so I can grab sort of the pedals like with my toes, like claw them really, and then I can get more grip and accelerate also a bit harder. And when braking, it's also very similar to you, Mickey. I try to almost lift my foot off the pedal to get like more leverage on the wheel, mostly with my foot that is a bit back, but yeah, that's most of the time. But sometimes I do it at the same time. Sometimes when I have to turn like left or right, then it also shifts, but mostly, yeah, one foot is forward, the other one is just a bit back.
I should say I also squeeze my wheel with my like inner calves when braking. So like a slower, less aggressive brake, I'm just mainly just squeezing that and leaning.
Mm-hmm.
But for more aggressive stuff, I'm squeezing, leaning, and then pushing that back, lifting my toes, and putting that back foot down.
I think one thing that's to add to pedal stance is if you have Kuji pads. I think that makes a difference on how you stand on your pedals. I haven't really gone into the Kuji pad thing yet. I haven't found good pads to stick onto my wheel. With my wheel, you know, if it falls over on its side, I find that the pads just scrape up. At least the neoprene pads in Canada that I found are all garbage. So if I do find some good pads, I think that may change, because right now I'm finding that if I'm accelerating, the pedals are actually almost, I find, too big for my feet. So I have to put my feet, almost both of them, like more forward to accelerate up a hill. So I'm doing a lot of climbing now in Taiwan. It's like really like steep climbs, like 30, 45 degrees, and they go for like 400 meters. So it can go up a decent distance. And then when I go downhill, I need to put my feet on the back. But it becomes easier if that pedals matches my size. So I wear like a size 8.5, 9 shoe, right? If the shoes are wide enough. And
Is that Canadian?
US size US. Yeah, so I don't have like tremendously big feet.
European?
So when they give me the so when I have big XL, like when I have big XL pedals, I find it hard to, I think, accelerate. I think I'll have an easier time with the stock pedals. But it seems like most everyone wants extra large pedals now.
What are you riding again? What's your daily
Kingston
rep driver?
18 XL.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I need Kuji pads for that extra torque. I'm not sure.
I
But
mean,
so far,
It's interesting that you say that, because I found the 18XL, like the bigger size pedals, also to be maybe a bit tricky to like push hard, because as you say, I also like to have my toes like hanging off the pedals in the front of the pedals themselves, so the foot plates.
Right.
So this helps with acceleration, definitely.
Well, if you're not using, I was going to say, Jack, if you're liking the stock pedals, go for it. But I wonder if the 16X pedals would be a good fit too.
they gave me XL pedals. I don't know. I didn't have a choice, and I got the wheel before I worked for Kingsong, so I really like.
But I'm saying you should get a free pair of pedals now if you.
No, I'm getting.
You
custom
deserve it.
pedals. No, I'm getting pedals that match exactly the shape of my foot. And I 3D scan it and. Okay, so it sounds like we're all pretty agreed on just how we should stand. Is there a chance where we might stand just next to each other, Mickey? Like, is there maybe?
Well, I always encourage new riders to do an equal stance. I think when you're like literal, like just jumping on riders, if you do this, I think it can get confusing, and like the balance issue, until you learn the muscle memory mechanics of it. I encourage people to be just hanging your toes off at the balls of your toes, let your toes hang off.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like me, any other stances, my stance is like hyper weird or aggressive or whatever you want to call it. So I think sometimes it's like my feet get tired probably more. So sometimes I'll just move my left foot back forward when I'm feeling like foot fatigue of some sort. Really, it's more like right now, I'm not in the city, but when I'm in the city, just to get anywhere is a bit of like a hassle. Like the terrain, it seems like, oh, it's just asphalt, but like I have to go over a huge bridge, and then you have to go. Every street is just ripped up, and it's like you feel the fatigue as if you're doing a long distance ride, even on like shorter.
Especially on the Nikola.
First down the Nikola. Well, actually, the first thing
Yeah.
I did on my MSX was grind down those pedals because I couldn't stand how aggressive it was, and it's especially bad for someone who has flat feet. It was too aggressive, so I fouled down the insides of the pedals and made it a lot more like 90 degrees. That's why I like Kingsong better. Usually it's closer to 90. I don't know if it's actually a pure 90, but at least on my ATN XL it feels like that.
I think it was 10 degrees is what
10
they made
degrees?
it on. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I know
I
that,
remember it
quick
was
info,
with
I know the
16X.
S18 is going to come with aggressive pedals. So the
Nice.
prototype has, I think, close to maybe like an 18XL pedal structure where it's pretty much flat. But it'll be closer to the MSX where it'll be 5-6 degrees less than an MSX. So not as aggressive. But you'll still be able to, the way it's structured, you'll still be able to naturally pinch the wheel given the angle of the pedals.
It's interesting because it also changes like how wide your wheel is. Because if you had flat pedals on a MS Pro, it will be super difficult to ride it as well. because your feet
Mhm.
will be like far apart but flat. So I think that's also why the reason why they make them angled as well, because it's like a super wide wheel as well.
But I think if you have flat pedals, you can stand on the outside of those pedals, and if you have a skinnier wheel, you can topple that wheel over
Yeah.
without your lean, which allows for a tighter turn. So this is like getting into like experienced riding stuff, like fast, agile riders where they want that agility. You'll see that one way to turn is to just topple the wheel over, like this way, right?
Yep.
And then the second movement is a full body lean, right? Including the hips, like I'm turning right, I'm turning left, and then you'll get a faster lean in addition to that. So I do think that a flatter pedal will allow easier motion of that. Yeah.
I've been experimenting more with, I guess, what I used to preach, and I mean I still kind of do, for turning specifically and how you use your pedals is I would tell people to, like, especially on like a smaller width tire, just lean and like let your leg pull it over your outer leg, like lock your outer leg on the outside of the wheel. But I've been experimenting with the sort of like kind of opposite mentality, which is like I'm locking my outer leg, but I'm like lifting onto my toe on the outer during a turn. Like everyone has
I see
seen
what you're saying.
Voldemort ride that way, aka VT. And so I've been doing that a little bit more because I was getting strain in my knee because with the Nicola, it's like so much weight, and I don't know what other people have, but I have the like 1845 watt hour, which I don't think is sold anymore. So I have that extra battery on top. So I was actually having knee pain from just like trying to just
The
yank
100
it over.
volt, right? Is the 100? Yeah, the 100 volt is 1845.
Yeah, with the 18650 cells. Yeah.
Is that your 1845 behind you, or is that
No,
100 volt?
this is a 84 volt actually. So it's like this is actually one of the first Nicholas, but with the swapped mainboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like
I don't
sadly not 100 volt.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I got accidentally sent a 100 volt. Long story, but I actually did not like it because I actually did not like it because the battery being up at the top just made it really awkward in terms of balance. And I don't think
it's like the V10F.
V10F.
Yeah,
V10F is actually a really comfortable wheel.
They have the batteries up top, but they have a thinner tire as well, so it's like more manageable. But if you ride that thing, like in my opinion, always on top speed, it's really shaky.
Yeah, I think it's also because it's skinny, right? Like it's hard to pinch the wheel. The glossy finish, and it's so skinny as well. I think.
Yeah, I had to like
capacity.
bend my knees and really like try to hold it because it's just so thin. It was so difficult for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess so. Okay. So if you're learning riding, if you're new to riding, have your feet like parallel, right next to each other. Once you're starting to experience, faster riding, and you know how to ride your wheel, perhaps try putting one foot forward. I guess for me, I'm putting my less dominant foot. What are you guys putting? Your less dominant foot forward or more dominant foot forward?
My more dominant forward.
Yeah.
You're more dominant. Okay. So I kick a soccer ball with my right leg, but I put my left feet forward.
Okay.
So I don't know.
I think you just go with whatever feels right. That's what I tell people who are.
Try both. But maybe one more thing I wanted to add here is like also what you do with your knees, because I was prone to such a thing early on that I was riding without my knees bent. And you know what happens if you ride into a bump. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you're a newcomer or just a beginner, just don't ride with your knees like straight. Just bend your knees and you will prevent a lot of bad stuff.
I think it's a new rider thing to want to stand up tall or something.
Yeah,
like
that's what I wanted to do. I was like, oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I on the other hand, ride with my knees appropriately bent while I'm riding, and then if I'm doing high speed runs in the city, I have to ride like a jockey on a horse. So I actually lower down, and I'm really bent to my knees. I'm like almost to a sit because specifically the Nicola being a 16-inch tire, like I have to really compensate for when I hit a bump, and like it'll pop me up. So the weird part is a lot of people have a problem, like you were saying, with the extra battery on top of the Nikola making it unbalanced and heavier. I could be crazy, but I think that has saved me from falls on that thing because it's so much heavier. I think it sort of makes it feel like if I hit a crazy bump, I've hit bumps where I popped up and the wheel like did this, but for whatever reason, because of it, like it landed and then righted itself. I feel like if I had a lighter wheel, like I remember on the Tesla back in the day, like if you popped up and did that, it's not like there's no weight to bring it back to forward.
True.
Like you're gonna land sideways. So I feel anecdotally that it's helped me in New York City traffic with that extra weight there. But definitely it's an unbalanced wheel.
Yeah, it's unbalanced. I still think you want that balance at the bottom though. You still want that balance as it's just like a Tesla Model X, right? Or any of the Tesla cars. You want them to be, if the battery is lower, it's safer. You'll get more friction along the ground. You'll get better grip as well. So,
right.
I have actually one more question about the stance to you, Mickey. Do you also like adjust your feet constantly when you're just riding the wheel? Because I do that like all the time, like because it's always like not perfect.
Yeah, there's sometimes, always when I take off for unicyclists is always ugly. It's never pretty. Like we don't take off gracefully. But when I take off, I always have to readjust my back foot for whatever reason. So I'm like doing that swish back and forth like this. And then depending on how I'm riding, sometimes you hit a small bump and your feet move a little bit. So I adjusting for that. So it's not. I think it's a safe thing to say to everyone listening. There's not a like once you're in this stance, this is the perfect and only stance for you. Like it kind of is a little fluid depending on the terrain and the day. Sometimes, like we tell people, like, don't ride when you're tired. Yeah. Like, if you're really tired or if your legs get tired at the end of a long distance ride, like, you better chill out because, especially if your legs become jello, like, you're asking for bad news.
You guys ever hit, like, a bump and then your feet nearly come off the pedals? Like, it's hanging by the very edge of the pedals. I guess less of an issue if you have Kuji pads and the, like, S18 suspension or V11 suspension, but like so many times I have like hit a pothole and I haven't seen it. I wasn't paying attention and my feet nearly come off the pedals, hang just by the edge, and then I quickly readjust.
Yeah, and they go forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
and then you just barely hang on there, like with any part of your foot that is still on the pedal.
Yeah.
But well, wait, do you guys also have like tilted pedals in any direction?
Up?
Yeah, I mean the angle.
I'm zero. I'm at zero. Okay. I know some guys who ride MSX and
calibration.
Yeah.
Right, they calibrate theirs leaning forward. Some MSX riders in New York, specifically if they have like those Russian power pads, they'll lean forward and. In conjunction, I think it would be weird without the power pads on any wheel. When I used to ride on my King Song 18XL a little back, like a degree or so. But I'm like 0 degrees is what I do.
Okay, gotcha.
Adam, what is you?
Yeah, because I tried like actually two things, because at the beginning was 0, then I tried like with my toes down, but what I found is just easier to slip off the wheel. As you say, if I don't have such pads, it just can slide off. And back then I was riding the V10, which notoriously has very slippery pedals, foot plates. So then I got into like a couple degrees up with my feet. So and this is what I'm staying at till now, because then I have maybe just a little more safety in terms of hitting a pothole. I'm just standing basically on my fingers. I mean, I'm on my toes. And it feels maybe just a bit better for harder braking, because I just can hold on to the wheel better. And yeah, all in all, I like the off-road experience as well, because on the Nikola, the pedals like can dip a little if you have like a lot of shaking going on. So that's why I'm trying.
Well, actually, this is funny because the other day I went out for a ride, and I was I haven't really calibrated my ATN XL even up to the point where I had it, but I figured I was on an open stretch. I was on a nice open bike path. I wanted to push it forward, but I had difficulty pushing it beyond 44. And so I calibrated it. I calibrated it more forward. I calibrated it back. I calibrated level. And what I realized is if it was forward, I couldn't really accelerate much further because if I reached, let's say, 44 and I wanted to push it further, I felt like I was gonna fall off because my
Oh,
wheel's already
gotcha.
tilting forward
Yeah.
and I'm leaning more forward. And now I have to lean back, which means I have to bend my knees and throw my thighs and every part of my body above that backwards. It just didn't feel right. So I ended up tilting my wheel upwards a little bit, so up at the front, and I can accelerate hard. I push down on that upwards angle, and I can lean back, and the wheel's naturally already helping me lean back because it's tilted back. So I don't know.
I
That's
think it
me.
depends on the wheel too.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of trail stuff there where you are. Like I said before, I noticed it feels really nice on an MSX to be tilted forward. And I mean, again, this is more like a city setting. I felt the same when I reviewed the MSP. Same thing. It felt like all right, like at level, but for whatever reason, tilting it forward, I felt like I really could gain control over the wheel.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I don't. Yeah, again, I'm in like a relatively flat city setting. I mean, we have a lot of hills in New York City, but most of the time it's not doing like a trail or something like or going up a hill in Asia where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that concludes our like pedal stands, ride style a little bit. Hopefully, you guys learned a little bit something from Adam, Mickey, and I. We're actually just gonna open up the conversation. We're at 23 minutes and a half. What do you guys want to talk about?